Jujutsu Kaisen Season 3, the show the entire world is looking forward to, is almost upon us. Almost, we still have a few more weeks to go, but fear not, ladies and gentlemen, that won't stop me from milking it, never has and never will. Based on the brand new trailer they dropped a few hours back, as of this recording, the third season of Jujutsu Kaisen looks exactly as good as we expected, if not better. The star-studded team led by the insanely creative Shota Goshozono is firing on all cylinders, creating a final product that looks captivating in every sense of the word. As such, let's go over this newly released trailer and break down the visuals, or in other more transparent words, let the milking commence. Make sure to subscribe, I'll make tons of Jujutsu Kaisen content in the near future, so if that sounds enticing to you, just press the subscribe button, it takes a second and it helps out a lot. You can also become a member of this channel. Members get at least 2 exclusive videos per month, custom badges and emojis, shoutouts and more. Just go down there and press the join button. So we'll go through this trailer scene by scene in a bit, but as always, let's start with a few general things, the staff for example. I know I've already gone over the core team behind this show before, and trust me, I won't dwell on it for too long, but there are a few things I have to mention. Firstly, we now have a new assistant director in Studio Mappa regular Takeru Sato, a confusing addition that I don't really understand, to be honest. Look, an assistant director is supposed to be an important part of a production. He or she is on paper the second most important staff member, someone who stays with a project from beginning to end. As such, I think them randomly adding an assistant director to the staff list mere weeks from the release date is bizarre, especially because the show already had an assistant director, Yosuke Takeda, so it's not like the credit itself is new. Now yes, this probably isn't a big deal, there probably is a valid reason behind Sato's addition that doesn't lend itself well to doom posting. Maybe he just didn't want to be credited initially, maybe his influence is limited to the second core, which should still be in its early to mid stages of production, I don't know. It's just interesting and slightly confusing, so I thought I'd mention it, maybe it has something to do with the visuals. Besides that, we now have a better idea of the staff division between Chainsaw Man and Jujutsu Kaisen thanks to both IPs receiving theatrical adaptations recently. Quick recap in case any of you are new to this whole fiasco, Jujutsu Kaisen and Chainsaw Man are produced by what is on paper, and up until recently in practice as well, the same production line. That's the reason why the two projects have such a large amount of staff overlap, or at least they did in the past. It is, however, practically impossible to produce both projects sequentially by the same team. They tried with JJK Season 2 and CSM Season 1, but let's just say they didn't succeed. As such, the most reasonable course of action was to split the production team in two and work on both projects simultaneously, maybe have some people work on both, but by and large separate the two productions. This is a concept I recall pitching a few years back, so it's not exactly rocket science. Now, normally a model like this wouldn't be feasible, but given the sheer amount of industry-leading talent this production line led by Keisuke Seishimo has access to, a soft split isn't that absurd of an idea, and it looks like that's exactly what they are doing. Unsurprisingly, there's very little staff overlap between Chainsaw Man Reze arc and the first 2 episodes of Jujutsu Kaisen Season 3, the staff list of which is publicly available thanks to that early screening thing. At a cursory glance, I came across multiple artists who did a lot of work for Chainsaw Man Season 1, did a lot of work for Jujutsu Kaisen Season 2, and either skipped the Chainsaw Man movie altogether or doing very little for it and focusing on Jujutsu Kaisen Season 3, which again illustrates the divide between the two teams. Don't get me wrong, Chainsaw Man regulars will show up on this show, especially in the latter episodes. When the production gap between the movie and the second season comes into play, I'm almost sure of it, but by and large we have separate teams now, and that's a very good thing. With all that being said, let's finally go through the trailer, aka do the thing you guys clicked for. First things first though, let me get this out of my system. Series director Shota Goshozono is a genius, he is a fucking genius. Under Goshozono's leadership, and if the leaks are to be trusted due to his storyboards as well, every single shot looks interesting with no exceptions. No matter how basic a concept is, no matter how mundane the actions are, an unrestricted Goshozono will find a way to make shit look interesting, you can bet on that. I have said this before, Goshozono is allergic to framing things normally, and that's one of the best things about him. His brain works in ways us mere mortals can't even comprehend, it's insane. Of course, simply having a creative director isn't enough. Anime is a collaborative endeavor, every single department needs to hold up their end. Amazing storyboards are useless if the animation can't keep up, amazing compositions have no meaning if the backgrounds fall apart, amazing visual ideas have no value if the art direction and compositing can't keep up, you get the idea. There are plenty of areas an anime can fall apart in, but thankfully that's not the case here. Every single artist involved with JJK Season 3 is going above and beyond to bring Goshozono's grand vision to life. Every single department is adding to the final product instead of diminishing it. It's perfect, so far at least. It seems like the highly capable artists aren't actively being kneecapped this time around, which, hey, props to Studio Mappa, thank you for not being awful for once. I hope you guys can keep this up. Anyway, that's enough glazing, let's finally go through this actual thing. The trailer opened up with this beautiful shadowless drawing that perfectly encapsulates Season 3's approach towards character art. The copious amounts of thick, perfectly placed lines add so much character to the drawing, amazing stuff. We then got a few miscellaneous shots, and this is where Goshozono's unparalleled composition sense comes into play. The framing is always depth-heavy and volumetric, there are layers of complexity, the character placements are always quirky and eye-catching, it's so good. Framing aside, the style of backgrounds and compositing around this section really stood out to me. Many of these shots had this photorealistic, desaturated look, and said look was handled perfectly. It felt uncanny, the heavy blurring in this shot, the distortion around the edges here, the framing in this cut, it had a very, found footage aesthetic if that makes sense, it was so cool. We then got a few really well-drawn close-ups, Yosuke Ajima corrections I believe, some multi-layered mouse animation of all things, some fantastic large-scale backgrounds, and this 3D shot of an entire city with a complex perspective. At least I believe it's 3D and not clever parallaxing. This cut was really good, with the entire bridge being hand-animated frame by frame. They didn't need to do that, they could have simply used a background illustration, but background animation gives a shot that added bit of depth. Also some really good looking 3-tone liquid animation here complete with these sketch pen-like lines, really cool stuff. We then got more of those complicated compositions. Why frame a character jumping normally when you can frame it from the top down, making both the background and the characters significantly harder to draw? Why frame characters walking normally when you can place one of their hands right next to the camera and have it sway past it, giving the scene additional depth? The usual Goshozono black magic, basically. You know what got a chuckle out of me? This shot. You had these incredibly complex layouts and then suddenly, bam, the most stereotypical shonen composition ever with a speedline based background. One must not lose touch with their roots, I guess. Just so you know, this shot had fantastic drawings and top-notch animation, it wasn't bad whatsoever, just funny. Anyway, speaking of fantastic drawings, this trailer was filled with them. Unlike Season 2, Yajima's designs are fairly detailed with tons of extra lines giving each shot more substance, more depth. Plus I believe most of the shots shown in this trailer were corrected by Yajima himself, so that helps. I loved these scenes. Initially I wasn't a fan of the red outlines, but these close-ups changed my mind. They looked so amazing, particularly fond of this high-angle perspective on Fushiguro, complex for no reason, I love it. I've mentioned it before, but it bears repeating, it's insane how well the art direction and compositing kept up with the framing and animation. The multi-layered background pan in this shot looked amazing, the god rays hair and the accompanying compositing was a significant step up from Season 2 Episode 4, it felt a lot more organic. The red accent / rim lighting hair looked beautiful, the completely flat look of this shot was really pleasing aesthetically. The Shinya Ohira-like pencil lines in this shot, presumably a compositing effect, perfectly complemented the wild, distorted flow over form animation. Again, every single shot had something interesting going on. I was a huge fan of these shots, they were so cinematic. The entire trailer was quote-unquote cinematic, but these shots were cinematic if you know what I mean. The extreme depth of field blurring here, the gorgeous background in this shot, so good. Here's another one of those needless animation flexes. Why just animate Gojo when we can animate frame by frame the entire background, including the window, the bookshelf, and every single book on it? Why not? And speaking of why not pan an entire warped background layer instead of simply animating Yuji turning? Why not add background layers both behind and in front of Yuta and pan them separately for added depth? Why not? That's the MO here, why not? Also, I can't get over how good these quote-unquote realistic backgrounds look, they're so unnerving, I love it. Some amazing, spacious framing, fantastic drawings and animation, and top-notch background art and compositing then brought us to the mandatory action part of the trailer, which started off with these two insane shots. The entire car here, including the interior, was hand-animated, which allowed the also hand-animated Yuji to physically interact with it, making the action more dynamic. This was the coolest shot from this trailer in my opinion. The background illustration here, or the 3D background I can't tell, was briefly interrupted by 2D background animation, all while the super background went pitch black, a very Yutaka Nakamura thing to do. The same can be said about the spiky smears and the static after images, very Nakamura build. Also loved the black highlights on the fist, such a cool touch. I believe this shot was animated by Kohei Hirota since he animated something similar for the second season, although don't quote me on that. This shot was great. I loved these thick inky smears and the acting was quite solid, albeit ever so slightly stiff. We then got to the Maki scenes and dear lord, this in my opinion is the best Maki has ever looked. Absolutely jaw-dropping art, quite possibly the work of Nakaya Onsen, especially given that pronounced chin. Also loved the simple vibrant blood, it works with the overall aesthetic. This shot was ridiculous. Not only were the drawings amazing, not only was the foreshortening on his arm perfect, not only was the character animation insanely high level, the entire background was hand animated all while the camera changed perspectives not just once but twice. Mind-blowing stuff. This shot started with a standard fisheye background illustration but then seamlessly switched to top-notch background animation. Also, these desks lead me to believe that this room was modeled after the actual studio building, not the first or the second time they've done something like that. Again, for the millionth time, just look at these compositions, the background perspective here, the backlit camera pan in this shot, Goshozono cinema. The trailer finally ended with this cool partial camera rotation complete with the strong red and blue accents, amazing stuff. And that was the trailer. Again, not a single filler shot, absolutely brilliant from front to back. It was Shota Goshozono at his best. And that's it, I won't yap on for too long, I'll get plenty of opportunities to do so next month, so let's call it a day for now. A special thanks to Noot03, Ahmed and the Gallus90 for becoming tier 3 members, and until next time.